Okay.
I would like to call the Policy Committee of the Portland Board of Public Education to order. It is Monday, April 13th. We are meeting in an online format. My name is Maya Lena, and I'm the chair of the Policy Committee. Tonight we have with us Vice Chair of the Board and District 1 Representative Mickey Bondo. District 2, oh, Representative Ali. Ali is not with us yet. At-large Representative Yusra Ali and Chair of the Board Sarah Lentz. And we also have Chief of Strategy and Operations Dr. Sarah Warren with us tonight. Um, I will turn it over to Dr. Warren. I know she's going to do an agenda review as part of her presentation, so I think we'll just get started.
Great. Thank you very much. Let me just flip screens here.
Dr. Warren, I forgot to offer public comment. Sorry. So I will do that while you're
Okay, great.
adjusting your screen. If there's anyone here who would like to give public comment, this would be the time to do that. Please raise your Zoom hand. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So this evening we have three topics. The first is returning to a discussion of our policy GBEB, staff conduct with students. I did not indicate whether there was a plan to vote or not. I thought the committee could decide after having revisited the policy. And then policy EBBD, same thing. We've looked at this before, but the committee had asked me to go back and look at what other districts are doing. And so I've done that and we'll share that with you tonight. And then our adjusted middle school boundaries that's a follow-on to the work that the Boundaries Committee had been doing. And so we'll take a look at that as well. So starting out with policy GBEB, and I'll pull up the actual policy in a couple of minutes, but just as a quick overview, this is something that the committee has done quite a lot of work on. We started out with a model policy from Drummond-Woodsum. The committee made a number of changes to try to bring it into line with what you all felt was more aligned to what Portland Public Schools and our Portland community would need. It was passed on to the full board, but there were a number of comments sent into the board in the interim. And so it was sent back to the committee to work on some more. And that was led by Chair Lena and by Jane Sawtelle, who's a member of the full board, not specifically of this committee. And there was engagement along the way with both our union partners and our legal counsel. And so the updated version that we're looking at tonight is trying to be responsive to that feedback that was given. And as an added element, just within the last week or so, there's one particular recommended addition, just a phrase that we're looking at potentially adding in. But in general, we're looking for the committee to discuss and decide if the policy now is at a place where you all would feel comfortable sending it back over to the board or if it needs further work. And we can also talk about a question that was raised by our union partners around one segment that I'll show you when we pull out the policy, but really about the notion of students going to visit a staff member's home and why was that even called for in the policy. So we can talk about that a little bit.
Dr. Warren, I just saw that committee member Ali has joined us in the attendees. Can you move him over?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yep. I think I'm gonna have to escape here for a minute. It looks like he might be here twice.
It says, oh, there you go. Thank you. Great.
Okay. Can you see the screen now, the slideshow?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, and then the second thing that we'll look at again is the temperature standards. And again, the key issue here was a question around really around the lower end of the temperature scale. We had been asked to include outdoor temperatures. That's a question that's been raised a number of times. And so the committee was inclined to include that, but got into a little bit of a discussion about whether the lower end of that should be 15 degrees or a feels like temperature of 15 degrees. So that's with wind chill. Um, or maybe even to go down to 0 degrees Fahrenheit. And so I did a little bit of looking at other districts, more looking beyond in Maine and beyond. And I can share a little bit more around that. So you'll see when we looked at New York City schools, they actually go down to 0 degrees with the wind chill. Chicago, interestingly, stops at 15. Um, and they have another tier of sort of guidance around 15 to 32 degrees, which is more at the discretion of school leaders. Minneapolis is a little tougher. They go down to 0 degrees. And in Maine, this is not something we're required to do by state law, and so most districts don't seem to include the outdoor temperatures. But to the extent that they provide any guidance to their staff, it seems to range from 0 to 20 degrees. So we can talk about that when we look at the actual policy. And then the elementary school boundaries got adopted by the board. The relatively minor changes to those boundaries that were proposed by the Boundaries Committee. That is great to have done. And we realized that once that was done, it had a sort of knock-on effect for middle schools, and not in a major way, but really just a need to align so that students who may have fallen into one of those small zones that got changed at the elementary level, if they do indeed go to those, or when they go to those new schools, that they don't end up getting split off from their friends inadvertently. So making sure that the middle school zones track appropriately with the elementary school zones so that students can stay with their peers when they move from elementary to middle school. So it's a relatively um, technical kind of a shift, but we thought it was appropriate to bring it to the policy committee and then have it voted on by the board. Um, so with that, I will go back and start out with the policies. So this is policy GBEB, staff conduct with students. The latest version, again, was an effort to be responsive to a lot of the feedback that had been received by the board. And the feedback now from our union partners is that they feel like the tone is better, and that it has better captured what they would hope to see. The one kind of most recent bit of feedback that came was still a little bit of wondering regarding this fourth bullet down under prohibited conduct. Um, Wanting a little bit more sort of meat behind this notion of not disclosing personal things. And what does that mean exactly? So it's hard to define all of that in advance. And the phrase that we have landed on as a potential addition is matters of a significant personal nature. Um, I think that's something that the committee may want to talk through a little bit more.
Dr. Warren,
Um,
could I, sorry to interrupt you, but could I maybe just give the example of what the union partners were concerned
sure.
about?
Yeah.
So, it was raised that, what if you had a student that maybe sprained their ankle or something, and you said to that student, "Oh, I remember when my son sprained his ankle, this is what we did and this is what happened." And that could be, that is a personal anecdote to share, but it's appropriate for that situation. But what isn't appropriate is, for example, saying, bringing up stuff in, personal relationships, romantic relationships, that kind of thing, if you're just kind of, sharing that information with students, um, wouldn't be appropriate. So, I had offered the wording of unrelated personal nature, but the lawyers thought that was too ambiguous, so this was the recommendation.
So thank you for adding that
Sure.
detail. And then the other question that was raised, we didn't actually make any changes or recommend particular changes, but there was just a question around under the section here, before engaging in the following activities, staff members will review the activity with their principal or supervisor. And this first one of inviting or allowing students to visit the staff member's home, the question was, why is that even a thing? Why would that ever come up? And I know personally when I was a kid, teacher took several of us home for a little tea party type of thing. I think that things may have changed a little bit in the interim, but when we asked the attorneys about it, they said, yeah, this has come up in, for example, a coach wanting to have an end of season celebration for students at home. So it does periodically come up in some districts, and it's not a prohibited activity in this draft. It's just a something to talk to your supervisor about, and it falls into that category. But just noting there that that was sort of a question mark that was raised. And then otherwise, I think a lot of this here towards the end looks quite similar. So it's not like the whole thing has changed. Much of the change came up at the top and has been shared before, but this is now a chance to talk about it again as a committee.
I wanted to ask my committee members if it would be helpful. I'm more than happy to read this out loud. I know there's a lot of text. I'm not sure if people had the chance to take a look at it, and I just want to make sure, since there were so many revisions, and it says a lot of the same things, but things are phrased differently. So, let me know if that would be helpful. Okay, I will not read it out loud.
Is it okay if I stop sharing for now? I can't see what's going on, so um,
Sure.
just gonna, okay.
Does anyone have any questions about this policy? I would like to vote on it to pass it on to the full board.
No questions.
No
Yes, Chair Lance.
questions.
Oh, thanks. Thank you, Mickey. Yes, Chair Lance.
Yeah, I don't have any specific questions, but I just appreciate the changes. I think there were questions about the last version about having students in rooms separately, and there were like other kind of flashpoints, and it just seems like the language still gets at all of those things without having to name some of the specifics. So I just appreciate this version.
Thanks. Great. Okay, I would like to make a motion to pass policy GBEB on to the full board. Is there a second?
A second.
Are there any questions from the committee on the motion? Great. Is there any public comment on this motion? Don't see any. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, then by roll call vote, please indicate whether you are in favor of passing policy GBEB to the full board. Board member Ali,
Yeah. Yes.
board member Yusra Ali,
Yes.
Vice Chair Mickey Wando,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So that passes unanimously on to the full board. Thank you so much, Dr. Warren, for your assistance with that, and also to board member Sawtell. There was a lot of good work on this policy. I appreciate it, and to everyone for their feedback. All of the staff that got in touch with us, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so with that, then we will move on to the temperature standards. Let me reshare here. Okay, so just as a really quick recap of the state law, there's a new state law that requires us to set temperature standards for buildings. But that's all. And the committee decided that it would be important to add vehicles, and so that was done. And then we also realized, and this was partly coming from feedback from staff and just observing some inconsistencies in the way that folks were making decisions about whether students could go outside during colder weather, that it would be helpful to also add in temperature standards for outdoor activities. And so that's what this latest draft was doing. And then again, when we talked about this in the last discussion in this committee, there were some questions as to whether 15 degrees Fahrenheit was low enough. I think in general, there seemed to be consensus within the committee, and I know there is among staff leadership, that as much as possible, we want our students to be outside, getting the fresh air and moving around and getting exercise, getting a break from the classroom. And so we took a look at other districts, and as I shared just a few minutes ago, it ranges pretty significantly. So I don't think that it's an obvious answer for folks here. There's still I think a judgment call and a decision to be made. But really the range that was found was anywhere from 0 being the lowest, up to, I mean, even 20 degrees or more with the wind chill. So some places are more conservative than others, and I think it's really a judgment call. And then the other thing I would just add from my perspective is that whatever it is, I think it's incredibly important that we're, the line here about making sure that students are appropriately dressed is what's key. So even at 15 degrees, it's cold, and so we would need to be really mindful of that part. But that is stated here, and I think it's really up to the committee to make that decision about what the right place is to land. But just to be clear that here and in all things that I found online, it's always the feels like temperature. So it's with the wind chill is where the bar is set. It's not just about the straight up temperature. And so I think that, and just again, we changed the name. We had been referring to this as ECC, but it's now EBBD because we realized we had a conflict with another policy of the same name.
Thank you, Dr. Warren. I see that Vice Chair Bondo has her hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just want to get some clarification on the maximum temperature. Yes, the B and the second bullet.
Yep.
So yeah, I just don't know what my other colleagues are thinking about the 99 degrees Fahrenheit. I feel like is really extreme caution. I feel like especially for the little ones, even though I really appreciate the second line where we have to shorten the outdoor activities, but I feel like if we can reconsider, I don't know if it's that one, this is from the state, those are requirements, or this is something that we can make a change, or we can discuss about what's the best exceed temperature. Then we feel like it's something then we can bring or not bring out outdoor activities, because the 99 degrees Fahrenheit exceed, I think, is already close to 100. I think the average one should be, even though 90 to 100 is still really extreme caution. So I don't know if we can at least exceed to the 90-degree and really start considering those kind of temperature and outdoor activity, especially for people, kids who have health issues. So sometimes it's so difficult to monitoring. So we just need to be cautious because the temperature is already to the extreme caution. So this is just
Yeah.
speaking aloud for
Mm-hmm.
I already have a lot of family issues long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
And, kids faint and then they didn't have it was health related, but just because they've been outside. And even though it was the wind, but really the temperature was humid and dry, so it was just above the required. Then teachers or staff are making their own decision to
Mm-hmm.
go outside or not. So I just
Yeah.
want us to consider if we can, at least go to the exceed 90 degrees
Mm-hmm.
net. So.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm sorry I didn't address the maximum. I did look at those as well, but the committee had, I think in the last conversation was more focused on the cold weather, but we so it's a similar answer in terms of how other districts do this and what the guidance is. It's really a range. And this 99 right now is, again, it's a feels like temperature, so that's with the heat index, the humidity. So it could be, 90 degrees, but feels like 99 because of the humidity. So absolutely the committee could choose to reduce that. And I believe the initial draft of this, the 99 was based on, we were looking at the American Pediatrics Association, I think. But in looking at other school districts, this also varied some and it ranged up to, I think a lot of them were sort of landing around 95 as the outer limit, but it goes up to 99. So it really, I think, on both the lower end of the cold end and the heat end, it's, I think, very much up to the board to decide what you all think is appropriate because there's no one consensus in the state or nationally about what the limit should be.
I guess a question that I have is, um, well, we do have the maximum temperature for indoor at 82. Most of our buildings are not air conditioned, so I wonder if it's 99 degrees outside, how hot is it going to be inside? Um, yeah, again, I mean, getting to an air conditioned place is going to be challenging a lot of the times. But I completely hear what Vice Chair Bondo is saying. I don't know personally if I have a recommendation for an appropriate upper level temperature. Um, if we want to stay on the upper level topic, I have thoughts about the minimum, but the maximum I'm not really sure. But it seems that Vice Chair Bondo has more experience with that. Yes, Chair Lenz.
I would just add that the higher temperatures are the things that make me worried when they're inside. When kids go outside, usually, you know, they can sit if they're too hot. There's shade under the trees. Like there's a lot of options, and usually, I know we can't count on a breeze, but there's just like more space and seems easier. And I would expect that our educators would adjust activities based on how hot it is outside. So I feel okay with that higher temperature. Um, uh, but I agree that it's worth thinking about some more.
Um, I don't I don't really have anything else to add about the maximum. I don't know if anyone else does, but I would like to share about my thoughts on the minimum temperature, um, which is that I would feel comfortable with the 0 degree feels like limit. I think, we have counterparts in Minnesota and in New York that are doing that. I know in my experience at Roe specifically, they've done quite a good job making sure that children have the appropriate clothing. I know there's the partnership with Diana's Closet to have donations from places like LL Bean to make sure kids have what they need. And just having experienced this past winter where it really was completely pleasant, sunny, warm in the sun, but the feels like was, 11 and the kids were inside all week. That was really challenging, I think, for kids, families, and staff. Um, so I would be in favor of moving that minimum to 0 for the feels like. Um, yes, board member Yusra Ali.
Um, I just wanted to add that although I do hear, everything you said, unless we have some kind of way of ensuring that kids do not feel left out because they're not appropriately addressed or they don't have the resource that you just mentioned at every school, I just want to make sure that um kids are not like taken out um and they are not appropriately dressed and they catch a cold or something. So I don't know what 15 like it for me has been really cold winter. So I would not want to go outside. So yeah, I would just be concerned about that.
Yes, board member Ali.
Yeah, the only thing I would probably say anything about is the hot temperature. I can't go outside like past. I mean, I can past 85. I can, but like I can't breathe well. In other words, anything past 90. And my daughter's in pretty much the same situation, so I'm pretty careful about that. But I think my only question would be like, what's the average issues that we do have during hot weather? Are there um do we have like any heat strokes like that's happened? Anything similar to that?
I not that I have heard about, but I can't say that definitively, or over what period of time. Um, but in the 2.5 years that I've been here, I haven't heard of those types of issues. I would actually be probably less concerned about recess and more concerned about athletics activities when students are out, exercising vigorously, and it's not always possible to be in the shade. And so I've had more experience with that kind of thing in the past, not even here in Portland, but in past roles in other districts. So it feels to me like at recess, students are being pretty closely monitored. It doesn't last all that long. And they could, be sort of shepherded inside if needed relatively quickly. But I'm happy to, if the committee would like to do a little more exploration around this, I'm happy to see if I can find out any incidents that we've had in the past several years that may be related to either heat or cold. I don't have a real report on that, but I could try to find out.
Yeah, I mean, just with that being said, I would be really comfortable if you whenever that does come in, like, we should get the information, but I'm okay with keeping it at the temperature until we have more information.
Vice Chair Bondo.
Thank you. So I would like to keep odds, but just to get more information, just like you mentioned, Dr. Rahan, because I don't know how many shaded zone we have in our school, in all our school. This is about equity also, because we have some of our schools are not having not too many shaded zone. But the only thing I see, even though we want to compare ourselves to other states, we have the longest winter compared to the shortness of our summer, where we can have really the heat. Maybe the student during the summer school, or maybe some summer activities when they're outside. I have no idea. So when we see ourselves, how we can compare the extreme quotients of the maximum, because that's my still concern, because it's a lot of marginalized students who really attending the summer schools, and then they are facing the heat during July most of the time. So I know then there is really an issue around that. Don't stay too much outside because of those weather. So the thing is we have to be competitive. We just need to make sure that we are facing native kids who are really being, we are born here. They get used, no one get used with the cold, but they can, sometimes you can see them acting much better than some students just arrived. So we just need to find the balance of there to make sure, then teacher or staff, they really need to pay attention. Like Usra said, they need to have the clothes and everything appropriate. So I would like to get more details and a little more information. So how we can go to the extreme caution, even though on the minimum and the maximum there. Thank you.
So can I just clarify the specific things that the committee would like to know more about? One is just any health-related incidents that we may have had in the last few years related to, sorry, I'm just taking some notes for myself here. So temperature-related health incidents. And then it sounds like both, what is our capacity to ensure that students have the right clothing,
Exactly, yes.
as well as safe places to be in the shade when it's hot out?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm still coming back because I get a lot of experience on that with the exceed 99 degrees Fahrenheit. It just depends to which population are we talking about here. So I think we just need to be fair enough. I keep saying 90 is already extreme. Between 90 to 100 is already extreme caution. That's the way the index heats are showing all over the place for almost of the schools around the nation. So we just need to make sure that we get the right maximum here exceeded at least. So that time we can pay attention to all our population, all our student population included. Yes.
Great. Are there any other things that the committee would like us to look into further while we're doing some added research or information gathering?
I don't know if this is overkill, Dr. Warren, but maybe curious if there's a way to find out what schools are already doing. I know there's a range with both the minimum and maximum across the district, but if we could, gather to see what practices are already in place, that would be helpful.
Sure. I think Kristen Tedesco has raised her hand, but there isn't procedurally. Leave that up to you, Chair Lena.
Sorry, I'm just finishing to. I'm not going to take public comment on this right now, but thank you, Kristen. Another time. You can send me an email if that's helpful.
Yeah, and I can follow up with you too, Kristen. Okay. Okay, so for that one, then I will I'll take some of these questions and send some updated information to the committee. Okay, great. All right, and so the final topic is related to the middle school boundaries. And Chair Lentz and Chair Lena, you both were on this committee, so you might have to back me up here. So the board passed the elementary school boundaries that were recommended by the Boundaries Committee, and those were relatively limited in scope. I think about 31 families affected, as I recall. So in really just mostly addressing areas where there were, for example, around Morals Corner, where there were students that were having to cross over Warren Avenue was the one that stood out in my mind, but trying to neaten up some of those areas so that we didn't have students crossing major intersections. And so there's a small group of students that in that situation would move down to Longfellow. We are, getting ready to roll out the implementation of that, and there's a lot of flexibility that the board put in there. So just to be clear, people are, who are already living in that zone are getting choice around what they do. But the goal here for this committee is to look at the associated middle school maps because what was not done at the time that those elementary boundaries were adopted was to address the ways in which the middle school feeder zones would get thrown off a little bit. So without changing the middle school maps, it could be the case that a student moves from one elementary school to another, but then when it's time to go to middle school, they would end up getting split off from their peers because they would still be using the old middle school zones. So the goal would just be to make those small corrections to the middle school maps so that there aren't students that are suddenly getting cut off from their peers at the end of elementary school. And there are three maps here that were attached in the board documents. You can see this is the area I was just referring to that is kind of around Morrill's Corner. And so those hashtags reflect the change that would need to be made in order to keep those students now zoned to Longfellow to keep them together. And then here's a zoom in of that same map. And then the other map is showing, this is reflecting another part of the feeder issue that was created by the elementary school change. So that in this case, cleaning up Lincoln and King zones. Chair Lentz, is there anything you would add to this based on your extensive experience with that committee?
Just that the only other piece of context I would add is just that this is the work that the committee, we got kind of like to the end of our time together and just realized we didn't have enough time to make thoughtful decisions around, but felt like it was a missing piece to the process that the committee wished they had, had time to look at. So I just want to make sure that folks understand that it's not like there was no like good or bad value placed on what exists and what doesn't. It was more like based on the work that the committee had done, this seemed like the next logical thing that needed to be taken up, but there was no time. So just wanted to provide that extra context. And I'm trying to remember, this piece that's on the screen right now was from kind of, so what we saw with boundaries across the district when we first started this work is that they had been changed over time to do like little cutouts for certain things and left almost like these like keyhole areas across the map. And so this was a result of like just the cleaning up of those to make things make more sense and to be easier to navigate.
Yeah, on this map, that area that's sort of green with the hash marks, that's Stevens Avenue, just south of Brighton. Um, those homes along right on Stevens are districted for King, but you can see there's a few dead-end streets just to the east of there. It's hard to see, but it's like Fairview Street, Wayne Street, Anson. Those are all districted to Lincoln. So you have this sort of weird bubble right in the middle, and those kids go to King, but the streets adjacent go to Lincoln. So this kind of makes it a bit clearer so the person that's right next door to you doesn't go to a different school. And then the other map that has that one, I know I know it's hard to zoom on the diligent. I was having the same problem. Um, the area that's just to the east of Forest Ave, I believe it is, that like green bump out to the right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know Dr. Warren was saying like we're we don't want to split people from the kids that are with in elementary. Portland does have elementary schools that have elementary schools that split for middle school. It was just such a small percentage that like everyone in this area is going to, goes to Longfellow, but then this like, or Longfellow or Talbot, but then this little group actually goes to Moore for middle school. So there would just be like this very small population that's getting absorbed into Moore. So this kind of like creates more of a smaller, less of a small fracturing, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
students are still getting split across the district between from elementary to middle, but this was kind of an extreme case, which is why we wanted to keep it.
Yes, thank you. That's a much better
Yeah.
explanation.
So yeah, just to echo what Chairline said, none of this is like new information. It's just that we didn't have another meeting as a boundaries committee to accept this. It was the next logical step. But we just didn't have a chance to do it. And some of you may remember, community member Damon Yakovlev came to a board meeting to speak about this, making sure we do this before the school year, switches over, just to make it a bit cleaner. So oh yes, Chairlines, go ahead.
Just one question. Dr. Warren, do you have the total number of students who would be impacted by this?
I don't, let me stop sharing for a second and see if I have that.
Mickey, do you want to go ahead and ask your question and
Yes, thank you,
okay.
Chair. Yes, I was in favor when I read that. It really makes sense to me. So my only question is, if we accept that change, the little change here for the middle school, where those changes are going to land, they are going to go to the resolution. We're going to add that to the resolution. So what's the process here? If we make those changes for those for the number of students who are supposed to be moved to and keeping the middle school in the same area with the elementary school. What's the language we learn? Where are we going to store the language? Is going to be under the resolution, or what are we going to do there for implementation?
Chairlines, is that a hand to answer? Okay.
Yeah, if you would like me to answer, I could inform. I think it would probably, once you know how many students it will impact, then this committee would give a directive on whether or not those are folded in over time, if it starts in the 2027 school year. But I think understanding the number of students impacted will then give you a direction. But this committee should be the ones to make that directive in language.
All right. Thank you, Chair. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm just scanning the back and forth with our consultant McKay to see if there's actually the number in here. Okay. Yes, sorry, I did not include this in the slide deck, but I can also send this to folks. So 23 students, grades 6 to 8, reside in the area that was moved into Talbot. 10 students, grades 6 to 8, reside within the area that was moved into Longfellow. And then 1 student, grades 6 to 8, resides within the area moved from King into Moore to clean up that split. All other change areas had no 6th to 8th graders residing within them. So altogether, it's 34 students middle school students living within those particular zones. And my guess would be that the board would want to similarly flex as you all did with the elementary, that if there was somebody affected that didn't want to move, that could be a possibility too, in the way the language is stated.
Dr. Warren, can you say those numbers again? I had 23, 28, and then I didn't get the last one.
Sure. 23 in the area that was moved into Talbot, 10 uh 10 students in the area that was moved into Longfellow, and then one student in the area moved from King to Moore.
King to Lincoln or King to Moore?
King to Moore. Let's see. Oh, I see what it is. Hold on, let me project this. I thought we were done with all these maps. It's this little tiny sliver down here, which was moving over from the Lincoln side to the, or did I say King to Moore?
Mhm.
But that looks like it was moving from Lincoln to Moore.
And the other part I wasn't sure about was that area on Stevens Avenue that was going from King to Lincoln.
So this gives the bigger picture here. Sorry, say that again, Charlena.
The area that is in the southern part of the green section on the southeastern, or that was that like wiggly spot. I don't know how to just
Oh, this one that turned
no, go to the left more. No, down.
here.
There, yep. That it was King and is now going to be Lincoln.
Uh-huh. And your question was about the numbers for that
Yeah.
one?
Yeah.
Let's see. So was that I think it's a little confusing the way this is written because it frames the first couple in terms of students. Okay, so all students, these are students moving from Moore to Lincoln, right? That's the 23 that were moved into Talbot and the 10 that were moved into Longfellow. And then there's the one student that would be moved from King to Moore. And then all other change areas, so presumably the one you were just pointing to, had no 6th to 8th graders residing within it, within them.
Okay. So I think that means that like Lincoln Middle School will be getting 33 more students.
Yes, all moving from Moore to Lincoln, so 33 that would be moving in that direction. Yep.
Okay, well, it seems like we still do we have questions? Or was it more the question was more just around the wording of how we would present this to the board, or Chair Lentz, would we vote on this? If we vote to pass it on, the board also looks at the maps and then we make a recommendation?
I think it
Or-
would be helpful if there was language from this committee to recommend to the board.
And Chair Lentz, are you seeing that in the form of a resolution or an amendment to the existing resolution, or?
That's a great question. It could just be like an not an appendix, but an addendum to the report that was just like additional committee work. And then I think that could be voted on as an addendum. That's the way to say it.
Okay.
Okay, so we would need the language written up for next meeting.
Okay.
Great.
And are there any other questions on that I should gather at the same time?
I don't have any other committee members.
And I'm happy to help Dr. Warren with the write-up if that is helpful.
Great. Thank you. I will take you up on it.
Dr. Warren, did we have anything else we need to cover this evening?
No, I am still working on the 27, 28 calendar with support from Kevin Stilfen at Paths, which I'm very grateful for because that's one of the key elements of the calendar design is making sure that we're aligning to the Paths sending districts. But I hope to have that to you soon, but wasn't able to bring it tonight. So I think those are the topics for this evening.
Great. Okay. I would like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, thank you. We can stick around if you want to.
Exactly.
All in favor, show of hands.
Yes.
Okay, great. We are adjourned at 6:52 p.m. and see you, some of you at the next meeting at 7:30 for the other committees. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.